The music that you heard is your invitation to settle in and prepare for our worship service. Okay. Please know that whoever you are, wherever you are from, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Good morning and welcome to San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whether you are here in the sanctuary or watching at home, whether you are with us for the first time or for the 1,000th time, we are so glad that you're here. My name is Vivian Stidvent. My pronouns are she and her, and I am honored to serve as your lay leader this morning. San Gabriel is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association. We are a movement working for a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. Sustaining each other here in community is one part of that work.
Good morning. I'm Eric Hepburn. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm honored to serve as your pulpiteer. We're experimenting this month with a new order of service, and I humbly request your generous participation as we try it out together. Guides to the experiment are in the seat backs in front of you and also available at the visitors' table. Please join me now in a unison reading of our chalice lighting words. We light this flame to remind us love is the center. As we grow and connect, mature and deepen, love remains the center. When the light of truth burns all else away, love remains. Let us greet this day in song. Our opening hymn is Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. It is number 361 in the Great Hymnal. We'll sing the first, third, and fifth verses, and the lyrics will be projected. Please rise in body or spirit as you're able.
Open
Sometimes we're carrying something on our heart that could prevent us from entering, rejoicing, and coming in. Here in this community, our sharing of these things with each other is medicine. It is healing, and like all good medicine, it should be concentrated and potent. So we ask in your sharing that you aim at 2 strong sentences. Thank you all for sharing your joys, and for those joys that remain unspoken, we join you in thanks and praise. It's time for the Wonder Box. Hush, if you'll bring the Wonder Box forth, please. I hope that you all took the opportunity to investigate the Wonder Box back at the table there. Remember, if you're not curious, you're just refusing to play. All right. So there's an object in the Wonder Box. That's one clue. Thank you. Thank you, Hush. There's an object in the Wonder Box. That's one clue. What does that sound like? I don't know. Here's the verbal clue. We're guessing a word. Destiny with a side of work. Destiny with a side of work is the clue. Any word guesses out there? Calendar. That's an interesting guess. Keith, you got any prompts for us there? Let's see. Oh, it's vibrating. Oh, it's my phone. My phone is, there, it finally made a noise. I guess my attempts at turning the volume up this morning were not terribly successful. Okay, please, thank you, Keith. All right. Calling is the word for today. Calling. We're going to read a related story called I Am Enough by Grace Byers. Like the sun, I'm here to shine. Like the voice, I'm here to sing. Like the bird, I'm here to fly and soar high over everything. Like the trees, I'm here to grow. Like the mountains, here to stand. Like time, I'm here to be and be everything I can. Like the champ, I'm here to fight. Like the heart, I'm here to love. Like a ladder, here to climb, and like the air, to rise above. Like the wind, I'm here to push. Like a rope, I'm here to pull. Like the rain, I'm here to pour and drip and fall until I'm full. Like the moon, I'm here to dream. Like the student, here to learn. Like the water, here to swell. Like the fire, here to burn. Like the winner, I'm here to win, and if I don't, get up again. I know that I may sometimes cry, but even then, I'm here to try. I'm not meant to be like you. You're not meant to be like me. Sometimes we will get along, and sometimes we disagree. I know that we don't look the same, our skin, our eyes, our hair, our frame. But that does not dictate our worth. We both have places here on earth. And in the end, we are right here to live a life of love, not fear. To help each other when it's tough. To say together, I am enough. Now let's see how this proposition lands for you. If the existential necessity of diversity is one side of a coin, the other side might be what has been referred to as calling or destiny or fate, the double-sided idea that not only are we unique, but we are uniquely needed, that we have a teleology, or what Plato, Carl Jung, and James Hillman called a daimon, a reason for being here. Let's sing another song together, shall we? Our second hymn is number 318 in the gray hymnal, We Would Be One. Please rise in body or spirit as you're able.
Okay. Thank you for that music. All children and youth wishing to go to groups are welcome to exit. Everyone else, will you join me in singing them out? And now, I invite you into a place of deeper stillness and reflection. It comes from Dr. Brené Brown. Vulnerability is basically uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. I was raised in a get her done and suck it up family and culture. Very Texan, German American. The tenacity and grit part of that upbringing has served me, but I wasn't taught to deal with uncertainty or how to manage emotional risk. I spent a lot of years trying to outrun or outsmart vulnerability by making things certain and definite, black and white, good and bad. My inability to lean into the discomfort of vulnerability limited the fullness of those important experiences that are wrought with uncertainty. Love, belonging, trust, joy, and creativity, to name a few. Learning how to be vulnerable has been a street fight for me, but it's been worth it.
We'll try that again, shall we? Day 2. Good morning. So, my take on vulnerability is I'm not going to hide behind that pulpit today. Nothing up this sleeve, nothing up this sleeve. Just me and you. We're going to do an open Q&A today, unscripted. But I had a couple things hanging out in my heart and in my mind from last week when we were together. Can you guys hear me in the back? Are we good on volume level? Fantastic, thank you. So one of them was, you've heard me say from this pulpit over and over again that we need each other. And I had a very concrete example of that this week because when I left after the service last week, my wife said, I didn't say it during church, but I've got to give you a privilege check on your first answer that you gave last week during the sermon, the answer about, should I leave Texas? And she's absolutely right. Because I did answer that question like a middle-aged or older white dude. I dismissed the question about whether we should leave Texas as a party conversation kind of a thing. And I didn't acknowledge that there are some groups in our culture in Texas today for whom it is not light party conversation. Amen? Amen. So let's talk about some of those groups a little bit. Let's acknowledge their existence and their importance and the struggles that they may be facing in their lives. The first one that comes to mind, obviously, and I have known many in my time in Austin, if you're a trans child or the parent of a trans child, not to mention a transgender adult, what's going on in Texas right now is possibly beyond your threshold of threatening. None of us deserve to live fearful and anxious every day. None of us deserve that. So, do you stay and fight the good fight, or do you leave? Now, even though I dismissed it as a party question last week, I have to say that the deep answer is still the same. It's still an answer nobody else can give you. It's an answer that you have to find within yourself. It might be related to this concept of calling. What are you called to do? What are you called to be? And how does that resonate with this intersection? It could be that this set of laws is your signal to move on to somewhere safer, to a community that will appreciate you and value you without trying to judge you or marginalize you. It might be that kind of signal in your life, but only you will know that. It might also be the signal that it's time to dig in and stand on the front lines and help the people in your community who don't have perhaps the strength and fortitude, the grit and gumption that you have. I don't know. But here's what I will say about what we want to do and be in this church, which is we want to say that if you're standing in that decision space, you don't have to stand there alone. You don't have to be alone in this struggle. You can come and be with us, and we're not going to pretend to know what it's like for you. We're not going to offer you false or shallow comforts, but we will be with you in the pain of dehumanization, which lands on all of us. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
All right. So, LGBTQ folks are in a very similar boat with our trans folks. I have to say, with some trepidation, that I have had moments of relief that my teenager is a boy at this moment in history. Because I don't have to worry about what's going to happen if he gets pregnant. In the state of Texas, as a teenager, I am a product of teen parents. I don't recommend it. So, but in the language of the privilege check, there's also the question of, do I have the resources to make the decision that needs to be made if that stuff comes up in my life? Am I going to take my daughter or my daughter's friend or my son's girlfriend? Am I going to be the one who says, I got you? I got the plane tickets. We'll go next week if this is what you want. Or, see, this is where this stuff lands sideways, right? Because this is not really about the people who are like, no problem, I'll put the plane ticket on my credit card and we'll get through this. That's not where this decision is landing. This decision is landing on people who don't have the bandwidth to make that call. This is why it's a social issue worth talking about and worth struggling over, because it doesn't land on everybody equally. Just like no decision in our culture lands on everybody equally. If you have resources, you have ways to get around things. Straight up, period. Pre-Roe versus Wade. Pre-Roe. You'd fly your kid to a different country if that's what you needed to do. And if you had the money to do so. Plane tickets were expensive back then, by the way, relatively speaking. I remember, does anybody else have this experience from childhood? Do you remember when going on a plane flight was such a big deal you got dressed up for it? All right? Yep. Yeah. I know. My son realized the other day that I'm older than Google. It just blew his little mind. And I said, son, I got worse news for you. I'm older than the internet. I was in college working in a computer lab when the internet, as we now understand it, was born, when Mosaic, the first graphical web browser, was introduced. I was already working in a nerdy computer lab. I was there. I wrote some of the first web pages for the University of Florida's College of Business because that's where I worked at the time. And, they were like, I don't know, there's this web thing. We should have something on there. Anyway, I don't know why I'm dating myself. It's not really relevant. Anyway, so I'm going to move on to other questions unless somebody has a follow-up they would like to do on this question of privilege. I mean, look, here's the thing, too. There's a song lyric, but I can't remember what it is. Where are you going to run to? Where are you going to run to? Because there aren't many places left in the United States where running there really feels like the safe harbor that maybe it did just a few years ago. Maybe you're thinking, I don't know, Justin kind of bugs me, but Canada's not looking so bad. I had an interesting interaction with a woman from Mexico at a Leadership Austin event last year. She comes from Mexico City, and we ended up having a very interesting conversation about how her family in Mexico City can't believe she's moved to the United States because it's so dangerous here. Now that's an interesting little wake-up moment, isn't it? So if you thought you were the only xenophobic culture, you are not. You're not that special, and there ain't nothing unique about your fears. So these are the stories that all people in the countries tell about the people on the other side of the border. And it's inflamed by a news media that can't stop watching for Schadenfreude. There's a reason I put that word Freudenfreude in our service every week now. Look, man, I'll tell you what I tell my son. So Outward Bound has an expression. It goes like this. It says, if you can't get out of it, get into it. And over the last sort of year or so that I've been throwing that at my son often enough to make him annoyed with me, it's kind of morphed into a different thing, which is, look, the human mind is an amazing tool for finding patterns and for making observations and then for finding what it's looking for. It's amazing at that. So what are you looking for? That's actually a choice, folks. That's not predetermined by your environment. What are you looking for and why? If you are looking for reasons to be angry, fearful, pissed off, you're going to find them. And you're going to feed that monster. You're going to feed that monster of fear. And you're going to wonder why it feels so deep. There's a Native American story, a grandfather and a son, and there's a white wolf and a black wolf, and we won't get into the dynamics of coloring the wolves. All stories are problematic at some level. But the bottom line is that the grandfather tells the son, the grandfather says, grandfather, which wolf is going to survive? And he says, the one you feed. The wolf you feed. If you feed the wolf of fear and anxiety, that wolf is going to be stronger. If you feed the wolf of faithfulness and love and compassion, that wolf is going to be stronger. And it is a choice. So if in your head right now you're thinking, but not in this world, do you see what's going on out there? I do. You know how many people tried to kill me on the way here this morning? None. You know how many people tried to kill me at the grocery store yesterday? None. You know how many people tried to rob me yesterday? Well, we won't count the cyber people who did whatever they do, but I want you to recognize how amazingly safe you are almost every day. I'm not saying there's not stuff to be afraid of. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying look, the human being is already wired, as are most kinds of animals, to be 7 times more aware of threats than of promises. We know that through biology. We've studied it really well. We even have a lot of what if and just as stories to explain why this must have happened, right? You've heard those evolutionary accounts. Well, the cost of missing a meal versus the cost of missing a predator is very different. Yeah, okay. True. But we don't think about what happens. I mean, we talk about the echo box. But what is it that makes the echo box? What is it that makes it's so dangerous if you only ever watch one channel for your news? What is it that makes that so powerful? And the issue is that you're taking that 7x multiplier, and then you're doing it again, and you're doing it again. And you only have to do it a couple times before that's all you see. You don't see the hope and the kindness. Beyond this, right? I'm here with Bill, and we have a trust relationship, and so I know I'm all right with Bill. But man, when I step out these doors, whoo, who knows? And we see little things that trigger us. I'll tell you about one. I was driving back from Buda 2 days ago, and Tesla in front of me and my little electric car, and a Tesla behind me, and this guy in a big 4x4 diesel truck comes up and has to pass all of us, and not passes us in a passing lane, goes into the margin next to the median to get around us, and every time just floors it, making this huge billowing plume of black smoke. And I just was like, man, that guy managed to undo in 3 minutes whatever good the three of us have done by driving these electric vehicles on this highway road trip got undone by this guy having to be like, nope, I'm going to bury these electro people in plumes of smoke because it's funny. You know, it's just like, it's so annoying. But that's all it is, it's annoying. Now, here's the thing. We take things like that and more serious, more threatening versions of them. And the first reaction is we other those people. Now, I have to tell you, folks, othering is the front end of a slip and slide that ends at dehumanization. Othering is the front end of a slip and slide whose ending is dehumanization. If you've been on a slip and slide, you know there's only one way to avoid getting off at the bottom. You don't step on it. So what if instead of telling ourselves a story about how evil that person in that truck was, and I'm picking this because it is a somewhat lighthearted, less threatening example, instead of telling a story about how awful that human being is, what if we say, I really wish that they could have some love and some compassion and some growth in their life so that they wouldn't feel like they had to act out in this way. I wish they weren't feeling so scared that they had to like thumb their nose so that they could stay in denial about the plight that we're in as a species. Boy, I sure wish for some wisdom for them. I wish for some healing. I wish for some growth. We say at the beginning of our church service that you're welcome no matter where you are on life's journey. I want to ask you honestly to struggle with the question, is that guy driving that plumey diesel truck, if he pulled up in this parking lot, is he welcome? Are we offering our healing to him? The best version of us does. I'm not sure we're there yet. All right. I promised y'all Q&A, and I've been going on and on. Anybody got questions? All right. Mel, can we give Mel the microphone, Vivian, please? Or Mel, you can walk up. I can take it around too. All right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Test. Okay. So, first of all, thank you.
Yeah.
For addressing the trans question, because that is a major thing, and one of my friends just recently this week came out to me as trans, and that was a huge deal. Also as part of what my boyfriend calls the alphabet people. It is a scary time. It's a very scary time because we don't know what's going to happen over the next 4, 8+ years and where we're going to be. And rather than running to Canada, which, believe me, is more appealing than you might want to know, how do we deal in a society where we're accepted in a place like this, but we're not accepted at the grocery store? We're not accepted at the convenience store. We're not accepted. I'm lucky that I work where I work because they accept everybody. But there are employers out there that are at some point potentially going to turn their backs on people.
Yeah.
And the question is, how do we deal with that?
Well, so I'm going to talk just for a minute about fairness and about justice. So I like to think about it linguistically like this. Fairness is something that we've pretty much become sure is not, at least in the short term, an aspect of the way the world works. Like, there's the karma argument that everything eventually comes around and goes around, and I have to admit a proclivity to believe in karma in the long run, but this doesn't stop real moments of pain and trauma and tragedy that happen in the short run. One of the things that came up in our board retreat yesterday was this idea that justice also isn't something that happens. Justice is what we do. So, one of the questions that I I think Dave left us with last week, I'm going to dovetail it into your question, Mel, is, what do we do in this environment of fear? I'm sitting up here on this stool, I'm in this pulpit, and the real possibility that shepherding this congregation through a second Trump presidency might be something that's on my future radar has occurred to me. And I know how it was done when I was sitting where you are, not so many years ago. I want to say this. Trump is not the problem. We want him to be. We want him to be because it would simplify things. The problem is that some significantly large percentage of our fellow human beings are in such a place in their own emotional, intellectual, and spiritual development that they are susceptible to his message. That's the tragedy, folks. And that's why I asked this hard question about whether the gentleman in the smoky truck is welcome in our pews. I can only tell you, Mel, how I have to show up. I believe all of us can be healed. But I believe that we can't get healed by sitting in judgment of each other. We have really got to open up to each other's humanity. We've got to be willing to listen to some uncomfortable things. We've got to be able to be in conversation with one another across these things that people would like to use to divide us. I'm feeling blessed recently because a nephew of mine who is a youth minister at the current iteration of the Pentecostal church where I was saved when I was a teenager, he's now the youth minister there, but he started listening to my sermons, and we're having regular phone conversations across the divide, right? And you know what we're discovering, which doesn't surprise me? We agree about way more than we disagree about, especially if you're willing to not get hung up on a little bit of language here and a little bit of language there. Because you know what he said? He said he gets frustrated when people just give lip service to asking for forgiveness or for doing apologies, right? And we talked about that last week. Look, it's not fair. It wasn't fair in the 60s when it was race-based civil rights, and those people had to figure out how to show up and be compassionate enough for everyone. And I've read the authors like Ta-Nehisi Coates who are like, why are we praising all these nonviolent people? Like, I'm not sure it worked. And asking the people who are suffering the most to take the high road every time over and over again, and in a way that teaches the other people, that's not fair. Look, this is what I believe, and I am still learning every day. I'm having conversations with human beings across the spectrum as much as I can. I think one of the toxic lies that's happening, I don't want to deny that there are perpetrators and victims, okay? I don't want to deny with some sort of false equivalency that things are equal on both sides of the teeter-totter, that there are good people on both sides. I don't want to get into that. What I want to get into is this. Dehumanization affects both parties. I can't dehumanize Tom here without tearing up a part of my own soul. And that soul damage is real. When I dehumanize Tom, I've had to convince myself that some deep lie about the nature of the universe is true. That he's not worth it. He's not a real human because he's too old, or his skin's the wrong color, or he believes the wrong thing, or he was an asshole to me once. Dang it, I did it again. Swear jar. Pulpit swear jar. I did it last week too. I had to mark my sermon last week. I had to mark it explicit on YouTube. And I was like, man, I really don't like doing that. My apologies. Sometimes I get exercised about these things. Maybe I shouldn't apologize if I don't really intend to change my behavior. Maybe I should just have a swear jar instead that goes to a worthy cause. Look, part of the trouble that we're in, no matter where we are on the spectrum, is that dehumanization, the use of violence and the threat of violence, they're just de rigueur. They're just completely normalized within our culture. I can't tell you how annoyed I am to watch the president and the pundits and the leaders of this nation stand up and talk about their intolerance for political violence. That's hilarious. Have you seen your police forces? Were you awake during Black Lives Matter? Like, we are having a different reaction because a wealthy, powerful white dude got shot. We are not having that same reaction when everybody gets shot. So this idea that like we've got some like high ground moral stance about how we're not violent is just laughable. It's just laughable. We spend more money on killing machines than any country on the earth. We militarize our police departments to put salve over the fact that we have an inequitable society that we won't own. But we want to talk about like, well, you know, there are those people and, well, I'm not, you know, they, first foot on the slip and slide, they are a danger to us, whoever they is. And I know people in this very room have had that thought one moment, and the next moment y'all are making fun of the Republicans for doing it from the stage. What did we talk about last week? Do not apologize if you don't mean it. And if you are apologizing for something, that is the universe inviting you to heal that thing within you. And if you're not taking that work seriously, you're doing exactly what my Pentecostal cousin was talking about. He's like, man, just people who are showing up and not really doing the work, but they're, you know, they show up and like, yep, I got down on my knees and I cried and I spoke in tongues and now I'm forgiven for another week. I'm going to do the same thing this week I did last week. Are we learning something from all this? Look, when I was a kid, there was a cartoon called G.I. Joe. And the tagline of G.I. Joe was, knowing is half the battle. And I just really want to wring the neck of those show writers. Because I believed that for a long time. Knowing is the first step of a very long path. Wisdom is easy to talk about, just ask me. I get paid to do it. Wisdom is easy to talk about and hard to practice. It's easy to talk about and hard to practice. We need to talk about it. We need to be in community and in relationship about it. We need to have each other's backs so we can be in community, so that when that intolerant person fires you from your job, you have a community who helps you find a new job and a community who starts boycotting that business. We can't just put the blinders on and pretend that this stuff doesn't matter. We have to show up to each other and for each other in ways that do matter. So when you get fired from your job, you can't, in shame, not tell us about it. You got to come here, Mel, and you got to say, I was working at this place and they fired me because I'm gay. Let your community stand on your side and say, you know what? We need to write some Yelp reviews of that place. We need to do what we can to not give them our money, to let them know that this isn't okay with us. We want to get to keep doing what we do without consequence. Am I guilty? Yes, I have ordered from Amazon this week. As guilty as you can get. I make fun of the guy for building penis-shaped rockets, but sometimes convenience still gets the better of me, and I click that button. Because the alternative of driving around to 5 or 6 stores and maybe not finding what I need is just beyond the pale. So I get it. Is that adequate, Mel? No. All right, let's pass the mic. We got one over here. Guys, what do you think? 5 more minutes and then I should cut it off? All right. Talk into it. That way you'll know if they fixed it.
Is it on? Yeah, it's on. Oh, sorry.
Here we go.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm stuck with this idea of vulnerability.
Okay.
More powerful than strength.
Yeah.
Okay. What about vulnerability in terms of everybody owning their vulnerability instead of all this big brouhaha about how strong you are? And, I was watching the convention, a little bit of Republican convention, but the whole idea of people being able to acknowledge their vulnerability, how that's playing into all this.
Yeah. So I like this benediction, and this line is the one line that I want to change. Because this line, vulnerability more powerful than strength, it tacitly buys into this notion that this older, other version of strength is strong. I don't think it is. I think it's weak. I don't know. I guess it might just be a faith thing for me. But when I watch the movie Gandhi, and I watch the men marching toward the salt processing plant, hands down by their side, row after row, and the security police beating them with batons, and they're just falling to the side, but they just keep fearlessly marching in to make the statement, what you're doing is not okay, but my beef isn't with you as an individual human being. I don't want to hurt you, but I'm willing to be hurt so that your heart will open up and you will acknowledge the wrongness of what's happening here. I ain't never seen a bodybuilder or a sniper or a marksman with that kind of courage. We kill out of fear or because we're hungry, but usually we don't eat each other. We kill out of fear. I don't know what else to tell you. The old version of strength is about the willingness to do violence. I think the new version of strength that's emerging is recognizing that most of what we think of as ethics and morality is deeply situational. Look, if there are 5 human beings left on the planet and there's no technology and there's no supermarkets and you got to learn how to bow and arrow hunt again to survive, that's a really radically different world than the world we live in today. That's a radically different set of challenges to live in a scarcity world. I think one of the reasons that the world we're in today feels so out of place is that we are living in a post-scarcity world that is autocratically being held in scarcity conditions by people who are too afraid to adapt to the new model. We've had the ability for, I would argue technologically, over 100 years we have had the ability to feed, clothe, and educate every human being on the planet. It's not a matter of technology. It's a matter of human organization, human will, human priorities. Our technology has out-evolved our moral consciousness. So, that's why I chose this line of work. I'm cultivating the garden that I think needs it most. We got to wake up to the real situation that we're in. And it's not as much as we might feel afraid from day to day, that if we put our taproots into fear, that's the fruit we're going to grow. Below the fear, I said earlier, and Molly asked me about this, I said hatred and fear are unmetabolized grief. How hard is it to cry for the guy in the truck, or for Donald Trump, or for J.D. Vance? How hard would it be to muster up enough humanity within yourself to really cry for people who are clearly that broken? But that's the work in front of us, because we're either going to rehumanize them or we're going to dehumanize them. And I know which side of the fence I want to be on. And I know which side of the fence is the only side of the fence that would get labeled the right side of history. And I want y'all to come along. And I want you to start inviting your neighbors and not just the ones you get along with who agree with you. I want diversity inside these walls, across all the spectrums. I want us all to take into ourselves more deeply the truth that we do not have to think alike to love alike, but that we are all enough and we are all worthy of love. And that we, there's only one we, folks. It doesn't stop at these walls. Heck, it might not even stop at the biosphere skin of this planet. We just don't know yet. But it's at least that big. It's at least that big. All right. Oh, Chuck's going to get in the last question.
Okay, so keeping on theme, I want to admit something, my own vulnerability here. I don't speak German, and you've used a couple of German phrases, and I'm just curious: is that related to Pfaffenhugen? Do I need to buy a Volkswagen?
Oh, thank you.
Seriously,
So,
I would like to have a definition of them.
yeah,
because I don't understand.
thank you. And that's a great place for us to end. So, if you want to ask me what the current state of, let's call it, our siblings, of our self-identified politically conservative siblings, the state of affairs there is a symptom of something. What is it a symptom of? I think it's a symptom of a culture immaturely addicted to schadenfreude. And schadenfreude is simply finding joy in the suffering of others. Schadenfreude means finding joy in the suffering of others. Now, I think that most of y'all will recognize that 85% of the reality TV programs out there are about putting in people in situations where that person looks so degraded that it's not hard for you sitting on your couch to believe you're better than them. So you get that endocrine, you get that boost in your bloodstream about, well, at least I'm better than that almost dismissible, maybe not quite human being who I just saw debase themselves on television. At least I'm better than them. That is another aspect of schadenfreude. And when we have a culture that's addicted to trying to make itself feel better at the expense of its fellow human beings, and it can't take its eyes off the car wreck in progress, you get what we see today out there in the media and out there in the world. That's what you get. That's when you have an absence of wisdom and maturity, and you just want to watch a train wreck. Ooh, get me my Coke. Ooh, can I have some popcorn for this? They're really about to go south. The other word that I use is Freudenfreude, and it's not nearly as commonly used as Schadenfreude, but it is brought to us by our friend Brene Brown. And Freudenfreude is finding joy in the joy of others. Simply that. Simply, I want to hear your joys when we do joys and concerns, and I want to be happy for you. I want to be happy for you even if your kid did better than my kid in the spelling bee. I want to be happy for you even if your Formula One driver won the race instead of my Formula One driver this morning. I want to be happy for you even if you got the promotion at work and I didn't. I want to be, well, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming up with a non-trivial example. Well, I will admit that if that happens, I will have a hard time finding joy. But here's what I will do. I'm not going to let it turn and spoil into fear and anger in my heart because I'm going to grieve. And if we're here in that church together the day after the election or the day after the inauguration or whatever, I can tell you what we're going to be doing together. We're going to be grieving, and we're going to be talking about what we can do as a community to promote healing. Not to be afraid, not to live in fear, not to be pissed off at how stupid other people are. Because here's the deal, folks. The research about cultural evolution is real clear. It only takes about 10% of a population to flip the scales. And right now, globally, we're at about 8% of people who are mature enough that they're like, yeah, we don't need to do all this country versus country, rich versus poor. It's all a waste of time and energy. We're at 8%. We in this room can be part of cultivating that tip. We don't have to get to 85. We got to get to 10. We need a 2% bump. We can be part of that shift. And that's what I hope for us, that we can be part of that shift. But we do it by doing exactly what the UUA says, even though I don't always agree with them. We put love in the center. We put our love for each other as human beings in the center. Yes, I know some Trumpers. They are some damaged, hurt folk. I don't know a single one of them who I can honestly look at and say, they're an elder I want to learn from. And that tells me something about where they're at on their journey. And they're not in a place that needs less love, less compassion. They're in a place that needs more. And is it unfair to come to people of color and alphabet folk and other folk and be like, hey, we want you to take the high road and give lots of love to these people who are trying to hurt you? Is that unfair? Oh yeah, crazy unfair. And if, like me, you're a person who has experienced mostly privilege, a lot less unfair. So step up. Step up. You've had all the privilege. If you haven't cultivated the ability to love and have compassion in your own life, you got nobody to blame, and it's not about shame. Just step up. All right, we're ending on that note. Thank you all. You're good.
Okay. We take an offering each week to sustain this spiritual home and to support the work of our fellowship. If you are visiting, we invite you to fill out a visitor card, and you can put that in the offering plate, or you can return it to the visitor table in the back. Oops, sorry, page to turn. For offertory music, we have When We Are Living, a Spanish song arranged by John Carter, performed by Gene Olson.
Thank you, Gene. Sometimes we're called to add our voice to the chorus. Sometimes we're called to speak aloud the message resonating in our hearts. Our words are medicine. Please keep the medicine potent and leave space for all. Aim at 2 sentences. If you're experiencing a call to reflect, respond, or resonate with today's message, please raise your hand for the microphone.
Eric, thanks for a great sermon. My name is Rob. I had an experience this weekend that I struggle with. We were at a party with some neighbors, and this is a going-away party for a couple across the street. Toward the end of the party, our neighbors, very kind people, were teasing us about, how they tried to convert us from being Californians to Texans. But then one of the other neighbors started denigrating gay people. And in that moment, I was silent. And that's an experience I've had far too many times. And I struggle with how to respond in those moments when I know that I'm a minority voice in the room. And I'm afraid that if I speak up, I won't be invited back to any more neighborhood gatherings. But maybe I need to rethink that and think, are these people that I want to continue being around? Or maybe I need to figure out a way to respond in a way that says, I find those comments offensive. There's got to be a way to, somehow change those other people's attitudes in a constructive way. I'm not sure, I don't know how to do that. I'm still struggling to figure that out. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Well, it sounds like, I'm hearing a lot of echoes. It sounds like maybe doing some social justice training around that and making that available to the congregation would be useful. I'll just say a couple super quick things. One, there's a lot, I think, of good, valid criticism about what we call call-out culture. The antidote for call-out culture is call-in culture. And call-in culture is, I'm going to invite you to find your love for those gay people instead of resting on the laurels of your judgment. Oh, that's funny. I don't have that experience with my gay friends. I love them very much, and I find them to be amazing, wonderful, heartfelt human beings who have brought a lot into my life. Do you know gay people? So can you tell me about what your experiences with gay people have been that you would have this opinion of them? So if we really want other people to open up, I did not say if you want to change them. If you want to change them, keep your mouth shut. You're not ready yet. If you're walking into this thing thinking, I'm right, you're wrong, and I'm going to fix you, you have already lost the battle in your own heart and soul. Curiosity is the key that unlocks the human heart. That hasn't been my experience with gay people. Can you tell me more about what experiences you've had with gay people that have led you to speak about them in this way? And then you listen, earnestly, honestly listen to what it is that they have to say. And maybe for some of you who are part of the rainbow people, you're like, no, I'm not showing up to that conversation. That's okay. You can choose silence, or you can choose to walk out of the room. You can make any choice that you need to make. But if you have the bandwidth and the ability in that moment to care enough about that other person and to feel that you are enough to just be there for that conversation, then ask the curious question. Really, that hasn't been my experience. Tell me more. Tell me more about how you came to this opinion. Curiosity is the disarm movement, and we need a disarmed world. It's hard to be close to one another when we're all weaponized. It is huge. Amen. I got a note right here. I wrote it down. Got my pen. All right. Thank you, Rob, for surfacing that for us. I really appreciate it deeply, as do your congregants, clearly. Any other reflections before we move on to our next section? We got another one right up here, Vivian. Thank you.
So today's sermon and all of our talks, questions that are being answered, just makes me incredibly happy that I've chosen the UU, because these are my people who are big enough to admit that it's hard to be loving in a world that's full of such negativity, but that, like, we're working on it. Like, we're big enough people to, like, think, man, that guy who ran past me in his diesel smoke blowing thing, bless his soul. And that just makes me happy.
Yeah. Now, I will, but as we all know, we have to avoid the version of bless his heart that's not empathy. The version that's sympathy, that is a masked judgment. I hid my hammer in some gentle cloth, right? So we can do it, but we got to show up gently. And it's hard. Like, it's easy to say, and it's hard to practice. Condescension runs natural among us. Amen. All right. Anyone? Any other reflections?
I too have an electric car, and one of the things I know is they have better acceleration than most of the gasoline cars. So when somebody goes by me in their Mustang with the pipes booming and scooting down the road pretty fast, I just push on my accelerator a little bit and stay right on the bumper. I don't know if they've noticed I'm there. But yeah, they don't go faster than electric cars. They don't accelerate faster.
No, but see, my electric car's real old, and it barely has enough electricity to get to Georgetown and back home, so I can't go romping on the gas every time there's a jerk. But I appreciate that you do.
Well, we do have a nice electric car, but he doesn't drive right now. But we've also had diesel, and you get better gas mileage. I had 50 miles to the gallon on my diesel Jetta. So I look at those people, and it doesn't bother me quite as much when they're that rude, but just because it's a diesel, you know.
No, I'm with you. Thank you. We don't want to demonize anything. We don't need to be in that business. It's a road to nowhere. All right. Thank you all for sharing. It's the time now when we're going to open it up for announcements, and I know that Rob, our new board president, wanted to make an announcement from the pulpit. So now is the time to share announcements with your siblings, to connect us to each other and the world by letting us know things that are going on in the community, both inside San Gabriel and in the larger community that you'd like your fellows to be aware of. Rob.
I need a taller mic. Good morning. I'm Rob Berthold. I'm your board president for the year. I wanted to acknowledge something Eric said earlier. Our board we kicked off the year with a retreat yesterday. And we had an excellent day, spent a little time getting to know each other a little bit better, reflecting on what's going well, opportunities for improvement. Didn't quite finish our task of setting goals, but we'll get there. I wanted to thank Eric for helping lead the retreat yesterday. It was a great day. Just a reminder of who's serving on the board this year. Keith Hutchinson is continuing as our vice president. Joe Neschheim is continuing as our secretary. John Shaw is our treasurer, and Vivian is one of our trustees. Billy Adams and Walt Holt are new on the board, as am I. Thank you to all of you for agreeing to serve this year. I wanted to thank Sarah Smith and Robert Smallwood and I've got it written down here, Chuck. Chuck Collins, for serving the outgoing board members. And thank you for your service last year and for leaving the place in such good shape for us. I do have an important announcement. We are looking for a new treasurer. John Shaw let us know that he'll be leaving at the end of summer. He's moving to Boston to help his daughter. We really need somebody to step up and fill those shoes. John's done a great job as treasurer for us in the past, what's it been, year and a half, 2? A little over a year, anyway. John's prepared to help a new treasurer step into that role and transition with some smoothness. So if you're interested in serving the church, come talk to me, come talk to John, or any of the other board members. Thank you very much.
Do we have any other announcements people would like to make?
So apparently I can't let go of the mic today. Again, my name is Mel. My pronouns don't matter. Call me whatever you want as long as you don't call me late for dinner. The fact of the matter is we are going to start putting a music group together here. And I have been tasked with finding people who want to sing and or play instruments and or be part of that music group. So if you guys are in any way, shape, or form interested, please see me after service, and I will do my best to make sure that I get a contact list together, and I'm going to start making announcements. We'll see what practice times work for everybody. We're going to try to pull something together here. I would like to see this become a big part of what we do. So that's where we are today.
Thank you, Mel. Yeah, that's worth getting excited about. Anybody else have announcements? I'm walking back because I know Keith has one. I'm cheating.
Just a quick announcement, which is that there's a small group of us that work on tech team, and when the batteries work and don't fail unexpectedly, it's a lot of fun. So we are looking for a few more folks who can help us. There's most of the times 3 of us that do it, and if we could have a couple more folks that are interested in helping us out, it would be great. So if you have any interest in that, talk with me or Rob or Frank.
It's a good time. It's a good group of people. If you've got tech curiosity, this could be a great outlet. They promise not to throw you in the deep end unprepared. Oh, I promised that for them, I guess, technically. Anybody else? All right, last stop on the community engagement train is it's time for gratitudes. Anybody have a gratitude that they'd like to share? Gratitude is a practice. It's something we do. It's not something that just happens. Thank you, Fran.
I'm grateful to be part of a group of people that are so open with each other and share what's really on our hearts and minds. And I thank you all for that.
Or y'all.
I think I must be one of the oldest people attending this congregation, and I've been here since 2015. And today I have to say I'm especially thrilled to see so many new faces, and I just can't express my joy sufficiently because this place is so important to me as an old soul that needs all the help she can get getting through these turbulent times. And this service was just perfect, Eric. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Actually, my first gratitude is to my young charges today. And I would like to share with the congregation something I shared with them about youth and the things that youth do. I am fortunate in that I receive a lot of emails, those who read my Facebook know, and a lot of posts about the good things that the young are doing. And as we were discussing social justice today, I would just like to share with you an incident that was shared with me. There were 3 11-year-old girls in their neighborhood, and there was a 6-year-old girl who was being abducted by a gentleman. Now, they did not know her. As I told my students, 11-year-olds and 6-year-olds really don't hang out, but they had recognized her from the neighborhood. And they surrounded the gentleman. They asked her if she knew him, if she wanted to go with him, and she said no. They took pictures of him, they took pictures of his license plate, and they made a lot of noise. And then they walked to the 6-year-old home to her parents. That was one of the best pieces of news that I had all week. And as I say, we should never underestimate the youth, the things that we teach them, and how sometimes they do things that we would give pause before we did. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spoon. Anybody else? All right.
As we prepare to return to the world, we remind ourselves through our affirmation to carry our work from this place to every corner of our lives. Please join me in the call and response. The doctrine of this church is love. We are here to love. The quest of truth is its sacrament. We are here to learn. Service is its prayer. We are here to care for others. To dwell together in peace. We are here to live in peace. To seek knowledge in freedom. To serve humanity in fellowship. We are all connected in spirit. To the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. We are here to grow. Thus do we covenant with one another. This we promise to do together. Okay, and now it is time to extinguish the chalice. Please join me in reciting the words to extinguish the chalice. Here's this flame to remind us love is the center. As we explore and rest, engage and heal, love remains the center when all we see is cold ashes. Love remains.
May you find questions more profound than answers, vulnerability more powerful than strength, and a peace that passeth all understanding.